Mind over matter is some conceptual advice that we have all received, but it's actually a dysfunctional approach to most things. I am Tavish Cardiff. It is our Raw Materials Aligning with Intention week. Our mindset is important, but we have obscured its real value by creating a belief that we can somehow overcome the vastness of matter that is all around us, including our own physical being. Our mind is really only part of the equation. Where's our passion? Where's our soul's purpose? Where do our intentions really take us? Those are the things that are going to be the resources that carry us through easily to the step that we want. If we rely solely on putting our mind to it, we're going to have a real hard time handling all the emotional pieces that come up along the way. We're going to feel like they get in the way of our progress instead of being welcomed as part of the process. When we really look at the mindset that we want around something, we want to account for our mental state, what resources we can bring in to help ourselves, and physically, whether we're up to the task and what the task really looks like. Does our idea of what we want match the plans, etc., etc.? There are so many ways that we can go wrong from conceptual idea to end result. Mind over matter works, but it's definitely a lot harder than lining up everything that you need emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically so that the task becomes fun and exciting and not a mental exercise alone. Let's just talk about our mental state for a minute, because when we engage our mind in this process by dropping its rigidity and pushing beyond the boundaries of what we see as possible, we start to expand what we actually can see as possible. We view bigger, better ways to do a thing or see a thing. So let's get to the integrity of the actual issue. Let's get to the desired outcome and what we want to see over how to put our mind in the right set to get there. Because with our raw material, we are always putting ourselves in a position of knowing what we want, knowing what our values are, and being able to create the resources or recognize the resources around us to achieve those ends. That really takes a letting go of believing that our mind alone is capable of creating this. It is. But you're sitting there reinventing the wheel while everyone is dancing circles around you using the pool of collective resources. Now, collective resources starts a lot of fear, because when we start to use from the same pool, we tend to think that we must adopt a likeness of thinking. And I think we can share resources and we can share ideas without feeling the need to homogenize and become one. I think we can grow a lot from accepting and learning and working with our conflict rather than being stuck in the emotion of it. So, it's mental health right now is so popular, and that's not, history is timed that well. Our mental state is the thing that we're looking to solve our issues right now, when the reality is we have all these emotions that have taken up residence in our physical bodies, and our mind can't really clear that without the help of the things that we need to survive. Our breath, a drink of water, and the willingness to go in and look at what we've got around us and kind of push through those boundaries to what else can there possibly be. What we have here, when we look around and see it from the most negative standpoint, is scary, and it can create a lot of fears. When we look at it from the most creative ideal possible, we start to see ourselves imagine good things for a world that looks scary and fearful. When we have more energy doing that, we put more towards aligning with the intentions that we want to see for the world versus the ones that we're afraid of. And right now, we're a big, huge ball of fear on Earth, hurtling ourselves towards, I don't know what in the universe. It's not, I can look all kinds of directions and guess any number of things that could happen for us, from some sort of enlightenment that wakes us all up and reminds us that we are connected to each other, and we all start operating as if we have a responsibility to each other and not just to ourselves. I think about that. Or I think about, everybody just getting to have water. Or I think about everybody's most selfish ego side dukes it out and we blow ourselves up. I mean, worst case scenario, my energy is going to be a part of the energy that is brewing everywhere else. So I'm not so concerned with my physical body in those terms, but I am, as Tavish Cardiff, resident, of Kansas City, Missouri, and person who wants to see every human being have access to the things that make them feel relevant and confident and productive in the world. I would love to see us all be able to use some tools that put us all on a path to feel that way. My soul-centered intention has very much to do with taking this Our Raw Material arena and making it available to the general public for whatever self-understanding they can gain. I don't care what your political party is or your gender. I care that we all have a language that is common enough that we can get to know ourselves within it, so that when we communicate with each other, especially when we disagree, we are set up to create the space for accepting, not for understanding. Because I think it's really important that we accept the way somebody else sees things and the way they feel, even when we do not agree with them. That pushes us past our emotional triggers and into spaces of finding common ground and solution, which is really the only way we're going to get anything done anywhere. Take a look all around you at the intentions, the emotional intentions that are brewing everywhere, and let's look and see how many people who have the power to affect real change are connected to passion and purpose in what they do, to something that is above and beyond their own ego. Without a group around you to really check those notes, power can run rampant. So I want every person to be able to access their own personal power, so that when they do come up against conversations that are conflicting, or ideas that flat out don't agree with theirs, or something as simple as a land dispute with a neighbor, these are things that we can find common ground if we listen to what's actually valuable to each side, what's important, and how do we find a middle. Sometimes we're the only one willing to find the middle. We have to be willing to, what we call, take the high road. But doing that sometimes feels like you're letting someone walk all over you. And so by employing your own value system, it becomes really easy to do that, feeling like it's part of your purpose rather than a sacrifice that you are making where you're allowing another person to get away with something. And I think that's what we wrestle with when we align with our own passionate purpose, and why it's so hard to step out of the way of certain beliefs that don't want other people to get away with things that they shouldn't get away with. Practice guidance for this week. Let's try doing mind into matter. So when we're thinking about what we want, let's breathe with it. Let's clear any areas in our body, just like, let's say we're thinking about exercise. Start breathing. Think about where your body is resistant and where your thoughts might be resistant to the idea of, exercising at a certain time every day, or making time for something that you already feel like you don't have time. Where is your resistance? Identify it, breathe through it, negotiate with it, and see what new ideas you can come up with. Let's push the boundaries on our intentions, get to the point of acceptance with our emotions, so that we can understand what things will actually make us happy versus what keeps us tied to conflict, unaware of the resources that are all around us. I'm Tavish Cardiff. This is the 11th pillar. So next week we're back for wholeness. And at Our Raw Material, wholeness is everything. Believing that every single moment is perfect exactly how it is the basis for the entire ORM arena. If you can get yourself to a state of belief where you think every single moment is exactly how it's supposed to be, and you can keep your brain from inserting its own opinion about whether that's true or not, you have become a master of Our Raw Material. I can tell you I've been practicing for 5 years and I'm nowhere near it, but I recognize how often I am away from it. And I think that is the point of the practice. The practice itself is the thing that is valuable, not getting to an end. And I think that's why it doesn't end. It is circular, starting over at the solstice and the equinox, allowing you to jump in with any pillar at any time. I'll be back next week as we wrap up the final pillar of the winter 2023 session with wholeness. And then we'll be back in the spring to kick off Mentors Week 2024. Have a fantastic week.